God is moving. It's Young People Nation.
Welcome to Young People Nation. Listen to us weekly as we commit to bring transparency, healing, and truth to the everyday situations in life that might bring you down. Join us for your weekly dose of inspiration. Thank you for listening to Young People Nation. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And now, here's your host, Eugene and Donna Perry.
Let's go. Christ is the foundation. Know his word gon' lead us. Know I'm already going. Taking steps I believe in. Giving guidance to the youth. Giving guidance to the lost. Give the world to the project. Lead them back to the cross.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever time you're choosing to listen to this podcast. And welcome to Young People Nation. Today, we have Dr. Rosetta Parker Austin. She's not a guest, she's family. She is a licensed professional counselor, certified professional counselor, supervisor, mental health evaluator. She is the co-founder of Warrior Watchman Incorporated and Watchman House, which is an organization for our homeless youth. Welcome back, Dr. Austin. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me back.
Yes. She is a wealth of information. So if you need to get in contact with her, let us know, and we will direct you to her. Well, today's session, we're going to be talking about anger.
Okay.
Anger. Yes. That is a major topic, and I've seen it in my family. My husband's seen it in his family. I'm sure you've seen it in your family. So let's talk about it.
All right. Yeah, anger is a prevalent emotion. A lot of times people think anger is a primary emotion, but anger is never a primary emotion. It's a secondary. That means something has happened. You had a trigger plus pain plus the thought, and that equals to anger. It's never anger itself. So there's always something behind it.
So, Dr. Austin, you could literally say we are born with it.
We are, you could say we are born with the innate tendencies toward anger, but it's a learned behavior.
Wow.
I guess
From a trigger.
From a trigger, it's like a baby. The baby learns that if I cry with an angry cry, then the parent is going to do what's necessary to make me stop crying. So it's a learned behavior.
I must get an A in that category then, when I was growing up.
So that is a lot to think about. It's a trigger, something that happened prior to make these emotions. It's a secondary emotion. The primary is what triggered that anger.
It's what triggered the anger. Also, not just what triggered it, it's also what thoughts come along with the trigger that results in anger.
Okay.
Like, for example, let's say somebody cuts you off on the road. The natural response, we're like, oh, that person just angry. Well, it's not angry. What triggered it was they were cut off. Then the thought is, what is that person thinking about why they were cut off? And then that produces the anger.
Been there, done that.
And some of the examples of triggered thoughts is assumptions of the motivation of others.
Yes, that's when we have an expectation that somebody should have known. Or a lot of times husbands and wives, they'll have that. They'll assume that the other person read their mind and knows what is supposed to happen, even in couples relationships or either with their children. A single parent with their child is like, well, you know how I was going to respond. And so not necessarily. That's where we have assumptions, or we'll think somebody's supposed to support me. No, that's your assumption. That's not necessarily what's going to happen.
Y'all in my backyard.
So perspective, I'm saying one thing, and I have learned that in my marriage, that sometimes I'm thinking he should know that, but if I do not relay that, he don't know it.
Correct. None of us are mind readers. And we have this tendency that if we have been together so long, or I've been friends with you or partners with you, then you should know my behavior. That's not necessarily the case, because each and every one of us have a different background. So our backgrounds inform our decisions and how we act.
Preach that.
Interpretation of a given situation.
Okay, interpreting, let's say, again, let's use what we call road rage. Well, somebody cuts you off, and it's like, well, why did you cut me off when you should have assumed that I was obviously going faster than you, so why would you cut me off? It's like slow traffic to the right.
Wow. And evaluations of the preceding actions.
Sometimes we think people do stuff purposely out of malicious intention, and that's not necessarily correct. We assume that somebody forgot to leave the dishes in the sink, even though say, I told you not to leave the dishes in the sink, and we perceive that they did it intentionally. Well, it could be they just forgot about it, or something else distracted them. And so we take it internally, and then we start processing it as disrespect or rejection. And so that is a trigger, and it feeds the emotions. And then next thing you know, you're in anger.
I know me, I had feelings of helplessness in that area because of I almost forgot my wife's birthday. And it wasn't intentional. It was so much stuff going on, but when it happened, oh my God, the whole mood change and the anger and all came up, and I was devastated.
And and this is so rich to me, because sometimes we do perceive that a person should what they should do, however, they really don't know, and so. I believe we live in this make-believe world sometime in our mind, but the feeling of being, like my husband said, of helplessness or frustration.
Well, see, that's a great point right there. It's like we think somebody should know what to respond, but then when a person says, well, why bother? Because I can never do anything right anyway. And so that's the feeling of helplessness and frustration. Like, I could try to please you, but you're always going to nitpick. You're always going to find something wrong. So I might as well not bother. So that's another form of anger.
Yes.
With that right there, that was my daughter Amber. She would come in late after dark, and she said, well, I may well stay and play. I'm going to get it anyway. So...
Assessments of ourselves and others, or the situation. That goes back to what you were stating, assuming that a person should know better. And I will say, during this journey for myself, I want to say in my latter years here, that I've come to recognize that people are just human, and you have to understand the process perhaps they're in. It's not that they're being disrespectful or mean or anything like that. They're just not present for what you're expecting them to be for. So for myself, learning to not harbor, like, I can't believe you didn't remember to do that for me, or to do this or that. Kind of had to put a stop on that.
And we've got to get to the place as a society where we give people permission to be people.
Yes.
And we put titles and labels and expectations on others, but we don't give them permission to be themselves. But we want them to be authentic. And we say that with the assumptions, it's like, well, I must be a glutton for punishment, and I always pick the wrong people in my life, and this always happens to me. That's an incorrect assessment, and we have to look at the root cause of why things happen, rather than internalizing that anger towards ourselves, or even with the expectations that when people let us down, what was the root cause of that? was our expectation of them and was our expectation of ourselves out of that situation a fair expectation?
Isn't that kind of like a traditional thing? Because I know instances where a person got hurt, and because they couldn't get the person that will hurt them, they're gonna hurt somebody else.
Well, that's why they say hurting people hurt other people.
I see a lot of that.
Self-assessment is necessary.
It's necessary.
Yes, because we're only in control of ourselves.
We're only responsible, control, and we are responsible for how we receive. Just because somebody did something out of character does not mean my response should match theirs. I'm responsible for how I behave.
Correct.
And we say, you made me mad. That's not correct. When you become mad at somebody, it's because you chose to be mad. Somebody didn't make you mad.
Say that again, please.
Say, well, a lot of times we say, you got on my last nerve and you made me mad, or you made me this. Nobody can make you be mad. You choose to be mad.
Hear that, audience? We choose.
You choose to be mad.
I've adapted this term. I'm not going to give you my energy, or I'm not going to give the situation my energy.
Yeah, I've had to learn that everything doesn't warrant a response. I love what Jesus in the Bible says. Jesus didn't answer them a word. Sometimes we give people too much of our energy. We give them our control by feeling like we need to respond to their behaviors or what they did or didn't do. We have to take responsibility, and it's like setting a thermostat in your house. You set your thermostat and you leave it, and you don't keep adjusting it because you want a certain temperature year round. But with us, when we allow ourselves to get angry, what we're doing is we're actually moving the thermostat every time something happens, and that wastes energy. And our energy costs too much to be wasting it.
Jesus was one of the the greatest example of that, because the person get angry like that, he would just give him a look. And the whole conversation that's went between each other.
Kind of like how your parents used to look at you like, I know you lying. Well, they didn't know that term back then, but they just look at you, you know?
You talking about like you be out there messing up in the pews and mama looking down from singing.
Yeah, I got that warning. So, the perception that someone or something is out to get you. Let's talk about that. It's like I got to get you before you get me. So now I'm angry, and it's like I rev myself up like a charger. We keep seeing chargers, don't we? Might need to buy one. But you rev yourself up, and then this person has no clue why you're coming at them like that.
But see, that's when you got to take a step back and say, when we look at ourselves and say, this person is out to get me, that's rooted in rejection. So you have to, everybody is not out to get you. And when you think everybody's out to get you, and it's different people, different situations, you have to look at the common denominator. And the common denominator in that situation is often ourselves.
Yes.
And so we have to look at the root cause. What form of rejection or trauma has happened in our lives to make us think that everybody is going to be out to get us?
My goodness.
I seen that. I seen that in the job. You be up there doing everything correct, and the person said, I just hate that person there. They always on time. They always doing stuff correct. I got to do something about that. And all. I got to muddy the waters so I can stand out.
Yeah, that's all. It always come back to something internally, and we can either, some people say it's a low self-esteem. Sometimes it's low self-esteem because we got to put others down to make others look, so we can make ourselves look big. But a lot of times it's dealing with that unresolved feelings of rejection or hurt that we had in times past that we just kind of gloss over and say, well, it happened and it's over and done with, and I'm just gonna move on. But then we come to this place where we look at people always out to get us, and you really didn't move on.
Do you think that can be taught?
taught how to move on. Because a lot of times we tell, especially like parents, we'll tell our little boys, if you fall, oh, don't cry, you'll be all right. But then, so we train our little boys not to show emotions, but then when they become older, they show anger really well.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've got to go back and look at those and deal with those traumas, deal with those hidden forms of rejection, and deal with whatever happened rather than glossing on it and moving on. Because we, especially in some cultures, we are taught just move on, and moving on is not necessarily the answer.
Oh, yeah, you're right about that one. I know I used to try to meditate, try to count to 10, and it won't work.
Well, you know one thing, when counting to 10, I would tell people don't count to 10, but count backwards from 10 to 1, but do it as you're exhaling. Take a deep breath and exhale 10, 9, 8, and it takes it from one side of the brain to the other side because you have to be intentional. But counting, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 without thinking it. But when you're counting from 10 backwards to 1 while breathing out, that takes effort, and it helps take the sting out of the anger.
I guess the other side of my brain won't working. Because I went all the way to 100. But still, I mean, you can fry the egg on my forehead. I'm so mad.
That unresolved, whatever happened, you know, and we do often see it in men. We see it's in women, but I've really seen it in men, especially whatever may have happened in their upbringing.
But you got to look at us as a society. We don't really give men permission to express their emotions because as a society, we make men feel like they are less than, or there might be something feminine going on with them if they show too much emotion. We don't give them the credit and the opportunity to just express themselves and be men.
And the beauty of this, I'm sorry.
Oh, you got that right. I remember, man, I got hit real hard in football. He said, "You better not cry. You better, wait later, go behind the building or something, and don't let nobody see your weakness."
And the gift of that, when your husband or your son, your father, brother is able to cry in front of you, that's a place of comfort that you allow them to just, if you need to cry, if you need to scream and get it out, whatever that is.
And that's a place of trust.
Yes.
When that happens, that is not the opportunity to file it away. It's an opportunity to use it against them later. That is a sacred place of trust. If a man trusts you enough to show you his emotions, respect that and know that you are held in a very high place of honor.
Yes.
To know that he trusts you enough to be vulnerable with you.
Yes. I had to learn this with my husband, that when you have his heart, that's it's no price on that.
Exactly.
And so if when in our conversation, if he's emotional about something, I've learned just not to say nothing, just listen.
Exactly.
Just listen.
Well, men don't do well with emotions, and I know first time I saw you cry, I was like, wow, what did I do wrong? But when I cried, it was like boulders coming off my shoulders, because it put me in a category of, I wouldn't say a vulnerability, but it was such a relief. I mean, women can cry and carry on, and society says, okay, she's just getting it out. A man do it, look at that wimp. And to the point where a man will hold it in to the point where he'll explode. Well, not only explode, knock a hole in the wall, or tear a doorknob off, tear a car door off, or throw something out the window that he got to go back and get. Yeah, I still ain't found that hair I threw out the window.
It's over. That's over. What's some of the underlying reasons we may get angry? What's that you in your studies? Some of the underlying reasons.
There are actually like 4 stages of anger. It's the build-up, the spark, the explosion, and the aftermath. The buildup is what initially is that foundation. And it is that underlying learned behavior that we learn. And then the spark, that's the thing that sets off the anger. And then we have the, let me go back with the buildup. Let's say we have two children. They both grew up in the same home, well, two different homes. One child is when they mess up or something happens, the parents are nurturing, supporting, and that's his foundation. In another home is like, instead of bringing home an A, they brought home a B. It's like, you're worthless. What's wrong with you? You're stupid. You can't get it. You're never going to be nothing. You're never going to amount to nothing. And so let's say they go to school, and these two kids from two different foundations, let's say they both missed the ball for whatever reason. They were outside playing with recess. The one that grew up in a nurturing home is going to say, okay, I messed up, it's going to be okay. Where the one that grew up in the home that was criticizing and harsh is going to have a spark. That's going to trigger. That's where a spark is going to happen, because they're tired of being belittled and put down and not being taken care of mentally. And that's where that kid is going to have that explosion. And that kid is going to be the one that acts out. And then the aftermath that's when you have the consequences of what happened. That's why you can have two different kids, two different situations, but their foundation, that buildup, is going to determine how they respond.
Oh my goodness.
That's a separation of families right there. You know, like you had those blended families, and they're called your kids, and you treat them, that's all right, you get next time. But his kid, get out of here, and, all like that, and to the point where you have that separation, almost church and state type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why you have to make sure that you treat all the kids the same. It's like when you marry somebody that has children, it's a package deal. It's not his or yours, it's ours.
Exactly. Well, okay. Well, we have started this first session, and we got 3 more sessions to go, because there's so much when it comes to anger to unpack. And we're going to do just that. And hopefully we will leave people with answers and suggestions and help and hope in this process. Now, we're just going to read off a few references. The 988 hotline. We also got the crisis text line. Text home to 741-741. There's 24/7 for your support at a fingertip. And, of course, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which is 800-273-8255. Again, that is 800-273-TALK, T-A-L-K. Okay, is there any closing remarks, Dr. Austin, and then Mr. Perry?
I would say if you find yourself being angry all the time, that's a good time or everybody's telling you have an anger management issue. Everybody's not wrong. It's okay to get help. It doesn't mean you're crazy or you're out there. It just means you might need a little extra self-care. So it's okay to take care of you.
Well, I don't know about y'all, but they're all in my backyard. And this has been Young People Nation. And remember, there's always hope.
Christ is the foundation. Know his word gon' lead us. Know I'm already going. Taking steps I believe in. Giving guidance to the youth. Giving guidance to the lost. Give the world to the project. Lead them back to the cross. He the #1 prospect. He the top boss. I was broke, I was empty. He the one that paid the cost. Really thought that I was cool. There was nothing like the savior. Now it's time for the truth. The whole world been waiting. It's Young People Nation. 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 The whole world been waiting. Whatever you going through, I know what he gonna do. Don't matter the circumstance, we going back to the root. Keep going, keep going. Let that seed keep growing. You need peace and we know it. Now it's time to live holy. Young People Nation. You know what time it is. Young People Nation. Get ready, the time is here. Get ready, we vibing here. We about to let God in here. Young People Nation. It's Young People Nation. Yeah, do it for the heavens, you know where we going. Influenced by His love, you know we gotta show it. It's time to put the youth on to what God is doing. Cause I can tell you now, right now, that God is moving. It's Young People Nation.